everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight at midnight at the Crossroads. I'm Sean Sellers with
David Humphrey.
and
Jake Bell.
Hey, welcome to the new show.
We're ready to roll. How are y'all? How are y'all good? Are y'all good tonight, man?
I'm good. I'm full of beef.
We're okay.
You know what? This is for all of our listeners. We have just got done eating a steak, French fries, corn nuggets. Hump had a salad, 2 rolls. I had a roll. Jake had a roll, and then we went to Dairy Queen
for blizzards.
And now I'm a roll.
Yes.
Literally a roll.
Yes. So I'm bloated, but you know what? Let's get this show rolling.
Okay, let's go balls deep in it.
Oh, well, okay.
Okay. Well,
I guess we're just going to start like
about
that.
like you did with that blizzard, huh?
I support that. Let's talk about the end of last week's show.
Well, you know, last week's show we did the show about Prince. Correct. And some of the stories and conspiracies and theories out there, and we appreciate the feedback and everybody listening. That was an interesting show.
I still can't stop thinking about Prince running.
I know. You know what? That image got me too.
It's with me.
Yeah. It's really like some of the old cases we used to work where you get an image or you told an image and it's it's in your mind. It's etched.
It's there forever.
Yeah.
David.
You know, I had some strange occurrences after we left the show Thursday. I mean, there was a lot, and it's been a strange week since Thursday last week. Very strange, lots of weird stuff happening, and it's just, my phone broke. All for Prince.
Recording on David's phone tonight. So yes. I guess it's like, it's just deigned to be that way.
Correct. Yes. You know, it is what it is.
Correct.
We're set.
Let's get deep into it.
Well, let's go. Our topic tonight is going to be vampires. We're going to talk about vampires a little bit. You know, we've had numerous vampire shows, and we told some stories and legends and so on. And tonight, before we go, I worked on it for several days, and I left my notes. But I'm prepared, and I kind of, I've shared a lot of our stories, and I think we've got some stories even out there in regards to some of our vampire experiences and everything else. I don't know where to begin, but I'm going to begin by simply stating that I believe in vampires, not as the creatures you see on TV, but I do believe in the vampire type entities.
I mean, I agree with you. I completely believe in psychic vampires that they can drain your energy right in front of you. They can drain the energy in the room, and a lot of people that are supposedly psychic vampires, that's what they do. That's their thing. They can just take everybody's energy from them. The difference, the new way I kind of wanted to look at it, with all of our years of experience in investigating and researching and speaking to people and witnesses and so on, is that we've actually has gathered enough information that I think we can almost draw our own opinions and conclusions and what we think about these things. And actually what I really believe, I've had instances once in New Orleans. We had a couple in New Orleans. We had one in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Jake had one basically last night. I believe this morning. I believe that a lot of the vampires are basically parasites. Brad Steiger, who may he rest in peace, who just recently passed away, talked about them a lot. But I believe that the vampire type entities has never been human. I believe it gets into the fallen angels realm, and I think they have to have a host a lot of times to be on this plane. And they definitely fall into trickster realms, and they feed off your energy. They have to feed off your energy to remain in this plane. And I strangely think they fall in line with a lot of the UFO abductions, a lot of the lost time and different things where you basically just lose that time, which we've had one of those experiences. I think you can start to begin to tie all them things together with a lot of the vampire experiences.
What's funny is I recently began listening to the audiobook for Mothman Prophecies. Mm-hmm. And
why is there a cat on top of your head?
Because I love this cat. Because John Keel actually talks about that a little bit, about how all these things seem to appear separate.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at what's happening, there are things that trace it back all to a single origin. And he preferred to call them, instead of extraterrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, where it's not that they're on a different Earth, they're just on a completely different energy wavelength.
Yes.
That we don't normally see. And he lumped, the Men in Black, UFOs, vampires, kind of all together because they all have a similar effect on people.
Yes.
You notice a lot of similarities. Like we've noticed how people, for some reason, we tend to say, okay, this light in the sky is a UFO.
Yeah.
And that's we tend to kind of jump to conclusions because that's what we've heard. But in the 1800s, we knew that was a witch because people had talked about the lantern being on the end of the broomstick.
Yeah.
It's just all about how we perceive things.
Exactly. And then the vampire entities falls in line with the incubuses, the succubuses, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
We've had cases where we've dealt with an individual that's dealt with both incubus and succubuses, and they've been explained in a lot of different ways. Where with the lady at one time who dealt with possession is that she invited it. She was lonely. She was sad. She was going through depression, and then she started sensing it, and she started inviting it, and it was pleasurable at first, and then it become to a point where it become almost rape, and then the
Oh, it wasn't almost.
oh, it was rape. It was
Correct.
absolutely rape, where it was actually the body was distorted. It was one of the horriblest things you could ever see.
But you know what's so
Yeah.
funny about that? She invited it, and she wanted that to happen until it completely over her thoughts, anything about her. It changed her character and everything. And then you have that on top of mental health, and man, you just got a recipe for disaster.
And if you look at classic cases of possession, what people believe to be possession, those are all, the symptoms are there. It's just what happens to you. It's by degrees.
Yeah. And you start dealing with the possessions. I see Hump's going to take the lead on a lot of the vampire cults and so on.
Yeah.
But they even talked about what they would do, the rituals and the blood. That they would have some of the same abilities as certain, let's say, people that's possessed, where they could read minds.
Mm-hmm.
If you get into the young man that was in Kentucky that went to Florida and did a serial killing, I think Hump's going to talk about him, is that they said their group could read minds. When you start dealing with telepathy, being able to float, same thing we talked about last week with Prince, and that's becomes you got a parasite that it has to have a host to be able to affect you.
You learn to channel things by ritual.
But the case that you're talking about now, where she invited it in, was a complete, in my opinion, a textbook case of everything to do with the supernatural, paranormal. Possession, oh man, she basically had a haunting, a possession, succubus, incubus, what else? Because we actually saw this with our own eyes.
Yes.
Of what happened.
We've actually saw numerous videos of things where we had cases over the years of this, and her case was one of the ones that exceptions, and we was very blessed to have the opportunity to research it and to look into it, and hopefully kind of help her as much as possible. But once you have that opening, have that attack, it's something that stays with you, and they're always watching you. We had another case in Atlanta where a gentleman was actually attacked by a incubus, a male entity.
By attacked, he means penetrated.
Yeah, he was raped. He was absolutely raped.
Yeah.
And it started out as a simple haunting in the house, and it became, and this was a well-to-do family that actually had a 3-story suburban Atlanta home.
Great credibility.
You have to kind of get into the severity of it in order to really kind of have the compassion. Dude was bleeding. I think he had to go to the ER.
He did have to go to the ER. He did. And the wife was present. There was no one else in that room.
He was crying, and me and Sean were like, okay.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people listening can really know the severity of some of these cases and how creepy they really are.
That's not something you really want to know exists.
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. And I can tell you the instance at one time when I was in New Orleans, we wrote about it, where I was walking to the crowd, and something that stands out you can always look for. And I'm not a person that sees auras, but they do have a gray aura about themselves.
That story's actually up.
Oh, is it? Good.
Called The Strange Man in New Orleans.
Yes, good. That's something very, very true. And we had another instance where we had an encounter with an unseen type being that was in a very physical realm that
that came into that actually entered the room where we was at and we followed. You know, these entities are so. I mean, Jake, you want to kind of tell your side and what happened to you, and then we'll kind of roll into Hump stuff?
There's not a ton to tell, like I've told you, but it is worth mentioning.
Yeah.
And it happens. I don't know. Has it happened to y'all?
Yes.
Before? I mean, it's just
It happens.
happens. It's with me. It was almost like an old hag, but I wasn't awake. Does that make sense? Like, I had trouble breathing. Just could not wake up for the life of me. Like, I kind of knew I was in that state of rest, but I could not wake up, and I felt like I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And my gut instinct went attack. You know, just for some reason when it happens to you, when you wake up and it's been a few hours, you doubt it, but you know, in the moment, you know it's up.
Yeah. You know, there's numerous the old hag attacks like that and so on, and
Yeah.
you can tie all these different things, and whether they're different levels or beings, they all come from the same thing. And David mentioned about the psychic type vampires. You know, I believe in the psychic vampires, but I think it's almost where it's individuals that's possessed to a point where they're the host, and they actually drain you. They have the ability to live a little bit longer than everybody else. They have these certain abilities that normal people don't have, with telepathy, different things like that. And it falls in the line to a lot of the things they talk about, like with the reptilians and so on, is that basically it all boils down to these fallen angels that has to have a host that's parasitic that uses you to attack you in different ways. And David, you want to kind of go on your route a little bit?
We're going to change it up a little bit. As far as vampires, the research that I did this week was on vampire murders.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I come up with was a case of what I call thrill kill murder, and then a murder to where it has some, you know, I'm not going to say justification, but I mean, he's definitely screwed up.
Yeah.
And then we throw mental health, of course, into the mix. I'm going to set you up with a story, and this story is taken in the UK. Okay, lady in her 90s, sitting in an armchair watching television in her living room, and she started having to fight for her life as she was stabbed 22 times. She was wounded in the chest, an 8-inch long and 9 inches wide. I guess the guy took a butcher's knife and cracked her entire sternum open, put several deep gashes in her legs, and began drinking her blood. He took a big saucepan to collect blood to drink, and then also removed her heart, put the heart on the silver saucepan, lit candles in the room, and placed two different reports where he put something at the bottom of her feet like a cross, and put candles in the room and did a ritual, because this kid at 17, he had a desire to become a vampire. He really thought by killing somebody he would be a vampire. Classic case of thrill kill murder. And in his mind, the mental health part is he actually believed if he killed this lady, helpless ass 90-year-old lady, he would become a vampire. And you know, he got it started out he was only going to get 12 years. 12 years at 17. And it ended up, they overturned it, in like the European court system is so weird. But you know, he's got a life in prison for it. So this particular case is just a thrill kill, wanting to be a vampire. There's lots of those throughout the world and in the United States. Now, the one that sticks out that is super, super gruesome is the Ron Farrell vampire murders. You know, born and raised in Kentucky, drove down to Florida. You talking about a psychic vampire? He's a classic. He's probably the classic one. And I'm not going to say I think it is a little bit of manipulation, but with the ESP, reading people's thoughts, textbook. You know, around November 25th of '96, you know, he met that girl. She was having problems, but I think what she did was she fed into him as much as he was feeding into her. and she basically kind of to me said, "Hey, I need you to take care of this." Well, he gets down there and ends up killing the husband, or her mom and dad, still in the vehicle, and 2 days later they got caught in Louisiana.
So sort of a folie à deux.
Yeah, but this guy completely thought Ron Farrell was a true vampire. I mean, he really thought he was a vampire. He went by the name of, I'm going to see if I say it right, Asagio, Asago, and which is the crown ninth prince of hell. He literally believed that he was the ninth crown prince of hell. But what's cool about this? What's really cool about this is he's not a Satanist, because a lot of people threw up that he was a Satanist, and he vampirism is not Satanism, and he was a feeding vampire, a blood feeder. They drank a lot of blood.
Did you just assume my gender?
It's for it.
I can't be a Satanist vampire.
No, well, I mean, what he believes. And what he was, I guess, his group.
Yeah.
That's what they believe.
His group still exists, and he was.
What's the name? Do you have that in there?
The name, I wish I'd known. Do you have the name of the group? The group still exists in Kentucky. It's a small town in Kentucky, and Rod Farrell became
Murray, Kentucky.
Yeah, he became a member of the cult there. And the cult is actually ran by two brothers. And they do their rituals actually in the cemetery, the blood drinking rituals and their spell work and everything. They do the spell work. And supposedly that cult has the ability to read minds. And the magic that they was doing was really well. But Rod's the one that started killing cats and doing things that kind of taking it more on a public side than it was as they wanted to do, is keep it privately.
Yeah. And what's cool about that, okay, outside people looking in on this case said, well, was it his upbringing and all this and blah, blah, blah. This was his upbringing. How about his teenage mother had him, the father left, he was from home to home, and how about the family, his family was in a brutal satanic cult, that he was used with the blood sacrifices, the sexual assaults. I mean, he was born into this. Okay, and then of course they were all outcast from their schools and stuff. He got into of course the games, the board games and stuff, role playing games, loving the cemeteries. They were just all complete misfits, but they all stuck together. And I guess that's like anything else, a group, a gang, etc., organization, whatever you want to call it now. And in my opinion, I don't know how we could have stopped that, because if you play the role of mental health in the school systems and DHR and stuff, the signs were there, but in the 90s, I mean, I don't think America was ready for it. And I think after this, I think in 92, 93, 94, that's when America's mental health and the educational system and even putting it in the paranormal or whatever bucket you want to put into, completely changed across the board.
But let's before the mental health is a major issue, right? But the issue with like Rod Farrell's cult and these vampire cults is that Rod Farrell is a classic case of somebody that was satanic ritually abused, and he was in a cult of young kids whose magic that they did and rituals they did was I don't know how to say it, but extremely good. It wasn't like a bunch of kids playing around. I mean, their magic was basically on point. They even had like a vampire church that was hidden, and then they also met in the basements. And the rituals that they did and the things they conjured and they used for their, and they believed in feeding blood off each other. It was helping them get their extra abilities. That really is that comes into more of a possession.
Was Black Circle Boys based on that? The movie Black Circle Boys? You've seen it.
I've never seen the movie.
Brother, there's so much media and references just on his case alone.
Yeah.
From, Bloodlust, the Vampire Clan, Blood on the Bluegrass, Shack Shakers, Vampire Secrets, excuse me, the Vampire Clan film of 2002. The History Channel's done numerous documentaries on this. I mean, there's so much information. So many books have been wrote on this group or cult. And Sean's right. This is the absolute textbook. This is a real cult. The UK killing, just because he wanted to drink some blood, is just thrill kill. It's crap. But this Ron Farrell was the real deal. And he's still, to this day, you can YouTube this. There's some interviews that he's done the past year. I think he's gotten married. He's a lifer. And he still believes this.
But the different, this is a little bit different than what Hump's right about the cult. It's not satanic, right?
No.
But
it's not
Rod
bad.
Farrell was satanic.
Yeah.
Supposedly he was born and raised in a satanic cult.
And he split from that cult.
Yeah, but he took into the vampire realm, but he wasn't satanic.
Yeah, he took his cult and became satanic off the Necronomicon.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
And then they went to, that's when they went and murdered. So he split from that private, because that other cult was all about being private.
But you know what's crazy about the murders? They said he was so high on drugs and stuff when he went in the house that when he was going in and he went through a garage door, he didn't realize how big her father was. So he was looking for something to kill him with. And of course, as he says, a stick, he picked up a stick. You know, he didn't know if that was going to do it, and that's when he picked up the crowbar.
Yeah.
And you can actually Google search the actual pictures of the family and the autopsy pictures, and I'm telling you, once you see them, you'll never forget them. Of what he did to the father on the couch. But what's weird, and I want everybody to check this out. When I saw the pictures of him dead on the couch, bludgeoned, his face was all busted up. There's no blood running down the couch. It's like he was killed somewhere else, maybe. I mean, so I want our viewers and listeners to check that out on their own. I mean, if Jake, if you laid on this couch and I took a crowbar and beat your head in, blood would go all over this couch. It would run down the couch. If you look at the autopsy pictures and the crime scene pictures, there's no blood running down the couch. The mother got it in the kitchen. She was found face down, and I mean her whole skull was almost gone. And he goes in his interviews, is when he started, he just completely lost it. He says that he kind of blacked out and kind of just did it, and then they left.
But you know that he was into all that blood drinking stuff that you mentioned. That they
Correct.
broke into the kennel, like the animal park, or what do you call it, like where you help keep dogs,
Humane Society.
and took a puppy out and did a ritual outside of the thing.
Yeah.
And then he would kill cats. I mean, but it wasn't like they was just. I mean, it was rituals, very
It's just
precise rituals.
A lot of signs with other killers, you know?
Yes.
Like, with the abuse, the single mom, the small dogs and cats, it makes you wonder if he was a bedwetter.
Yeah.
You know, those 3 signs they always talk about: pyrokinesis, the torturing of small animals, and the bedwetting.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm big. You talking about juvenile bedwetting?
Yeah.
The psychological part of that,
really,
that to me is some type of emotional or almost a sexual abuse.
Yeah, it's usually
Happens, and when I say that, people get you get really pissed because nobody wants to talk about it.
because we're not talking about like when you're 8. We're talking about when you're like 13.
Correct.
Yeah.
What is it? Juvenile adolescence age?
Yeah.
13 to 15 or 13 to 16.
Around in there. Yeah.
Well, you start dealing with all these things, and you say, well, how does this relate to vampires? Well, the fact is, I truly believe that he was a host and possessed, and I think he still is. I think the rituals that they conjured and they wanted to do, they brought forth their ability. And for him to have his senses heightened, he had to do whatever it was. He felt blood or whatever it is. And at nights when you're on the street alone and you think you're walking and somebody's behind you and following you, it probably is a vampire. Very much like a Nosferatu, you know what I'm saying? That type of vampire with the sharp teeth.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something glorious or anything like you see on TV. These are
sparkle.
these are spirit parasites.
But let's check. All right.
And
if
go ahead.
hold on, if he's perfectly possessed
Yes.
and he's a host,
Yeah.
Yes.
can you be perfectly possessed and a host at the age of 4?
Sure.
See, that's-
How? Hold on now, because all right. How at 4 when you don't have free will? Like you don't know. You're a 4-year-old.
Do we want to go there?
I'm going to go there.
Yes.
I'm going to go there the
I
best
kind of
way I can.
answered before I really thought about it.
I mean, you easily can, but that child has to be given up as a offering.
You're
and a
born
host. No, it ain't even sacrifice. You have that next child have to be passed and hosted to that, and that's taken on. And that goes back to that case I talked about a long time ago about the little boy and the story of my grandmother and hearing him inside.
Yeah.
It was almost a vampiric type of a feeling where you could hear him and feel him in different places, and he wasn't human because he could crawl walls and different things like that. But I've come to enough with my experience, and it should be all of our experiences with the work we've done and our knowledge of some of the ritual stuff that it easily can be done if that child is given up through rituals and a cult. It could easily hand it over.
It can happen.
It does happen.
You're basically born with it.
Yes.
Like it comes with as a part of the person.
Satanic ritual abuse and cults are real.
It happens. Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, didn't about 5 years ago with the blood drinking, you know, it come a national problem of
Yeah.
of where I'm going with this is they want everybody was getting infected blood because you got so many diseases out there.
Yeah.
Wasn't it a place where they were actually getting the clean blood for the people, or was it just a made-up story in New Orleans
I remember something
where they were
about that.
farming
but
it
not a lot
for
of
people?
it. Well, there's clubs, where they test and all that, and people willingly give up some blood for people that want to drink it and all that. The vampire clubs.
Because I know.
Is that what you're talking about? The vampire
I believe so, and I
fetishism?
want to say it was 5 years ago. CBS did
With the leather.
did a special on it, and I want to say it was taken from New Orleans, and then of course there was a documentary.
I remember seeing it
on one of the History channels or something.
because it had
about
your
it.
girl in it
Yeah.
with the short red hair.
Yeah, Father
So-
Sebastian has, and they have denounced all the blood drinkers now. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they have, and they only about the energy. And then
Yeah, I can see his point.
and if you do it, you have to do it. They suggest that you do it between like a husband and wife and a couple,
Yeah.
and do it in your own, like do it as
That's where we're at.
as a sex fetish more than feeding the lifeblood because the blood is really not it. It's that energy exchange and the ritual that you use with the blood, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it.
Its
You can
blood
use-
is just extremely powerful symbolism.
Yes, exactly.
But it's very. I mean, that's really kind of nasty.
The
Yeah, a
cult
little
with the
bit.
cult
I mean,
with
really.
the
So are
cult
feet.
the cult with that Rod Farrell, if I remember correctly, is that they all have to feed off the main guy, or they like to be in.
Mm-hmm.
He'll feed off you and you off, but then after that you have a host.
They kind of Anne Rice it.
Yeah, then they have a host.
But I think that's what he thought was getting the power.
What he was trying to do was split it. He wanted to take the more satanic route. And follow the satanic by the Necronomicon. I could be calling the books wrong.
You're probably talking about the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Goetia.
But Pharaoh wanted to take it one way, so Pharaoh split the group. So that's why he had his own little cult. And
I'm just going with that off the name and
Yeah.
the Ninth Prince of Hell.
Yeah.
and all
Don't count me right on what I'm saying about the names of the books, but
Yeah.
I know that's Hump's right where he wasn't, but then he was when they split and they left, and that's why they left that group there.
And what's cool is you can YouTube all this.
Yes,
You can YouTube Ron Farrell's Confession or Vampire Clan, Serial Killer Central. But all right, this is another thing. I personally don't think he should be in the serial killer book. Like,
No.
he shouldn't be in that bucket of serial killers because it was just a vampire cult killing. It was just 2 people.
He kind of got caught before he could do more. Like, I have no doubt he would do
Now,
more.
he does say in an interview, he says that he would kill again.
Yeah, I
He
have no
would have
doubt.
done it. But if you listen to the interview when he was going through how he killed it, he seemed like a scary ass little bitch, man.
They all
I mean,
kinda
he
do.
really, he said he was high, he was on drugs, then he freaked out, then he blacked out, then he was doing it, and I'm like, oh man, he don't fit the pattern of a typical serial killer. Of like most serial killers,
They're
I
not.
don't think
They're
black
usually
out.
kind of.
But he's
It's second
time.
nature
but,
to
but
them.
he's satanic or ritually abused, so he has multiple personalities.
Okay, yeah. Good.
Well, I mean, I
And
support
that's a
that.
fact.
I support
I mean, I
that. But
believe
man,
that.
what's so jacked up about him? When he says, they caught me, but I was going to do it again. And I'm thinking after the first 15 minutes of the interview, man, I just don't see you doing that. Or could you have really done that again? Or would you have killed somebody in your group?
Like, I have no doubt he probably disassociated, like, with himself when he was doing it. That was the blackout, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
could see that.
He would definitely do it again. He just fits the pattern so well. He would kill again. I don't doubt it.
I always thought he was the modern day 1990s Charles Manson. He has a persona.
Because, I mean, man, he has very similar
He was
things going on.
He was a super
Manson
outcast.
never killed anybody.
No, he didn't.
No, he let other people do it.
Yeah, I mean,
So
He
I
was
mean-
just crazy.
yes. But Charles Manson.
I'll put it this way: he never killed anybody that we know.
Noah.
But look, that's a great point though. Would Charles Manson fall into the box of a vampire?
Possibly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, possibly.
Think about
absolutely.
it.
A
He would
psychic vampire.
Yeah, yes, he was a psychic vampire. He could bring people in charismatically.
Yeah.
He can tell them what
By
to
thought.
do. And then it was well talked about him having supernatural powers.
Well, shit. Of course he did. He made all them people do all that for
Yes.
him. He was entertaining. He had lots of. He could sing, and he was.
Yeah.
He could really do it all.
What about Jeffrey Dahmer? Would he fall into place of the vampire? Think about it.
Cannibalism and vampirism? I mean, maybe.
With the
But-
symbolism and the eating of the flesh, I think it's the same kind of fetishization.
It depends on how you articulate it.
Yeah, I think it's the same kind of like, because a lot of serial killers really fall into ritualistic behavior.
Yeah.
So if you kind of go into that forensic science of it or whatever it would be, forensic
Okay.
psychology, is that what it is?
Yeah.
I haven't watched
The
much of
Golden
it in a
Gate
while.
Killer,
I had to.
right now, that we're seeing.
Yeah, I've been listening to that audiobook actually.
I've listened. Hell,
That's pretty
we've
good
talked
book.
about it in earlier shows when we
Yeah.
first started about
Golden
it.
State Killer, yeah.
There's I think been a couple of shows on it. I know a couple of documentaries. 2 or 3 people have written books on it, and now it's playing where they caught him. Does he fall into that category, or is he just a real serial killer, or is was he possessed?
So he falls into place that he could easily had a host.
Yeah.
Now, with all these hosts and all this going on, and all this terror and murder, will there be any good? When is good going to win for a change?
Oh, but let me ask you something right now.
I think good one tonight with that blizzard.
Yeah. Hey, look. All right, let's say right now, if we put 50 random people from this city,
Okay.
right, inside the civic center, right?
City.
Yeah, from the city.
Uh-huh.
How many of those people in that 50 has any contact with the occult?
25. I say 50.
Like 25.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I believe it, and 50%. Sean.
It is more prominent, exactly. It's more
50%.
prominent than people realize, and it's more prominent to the point that people are turned to the darker arts.
You know why? And I'm going to catch a lot of slack from this, and that's fine because I'm a big boy. The churches in America have failed us. I'm going to say it again. The churches, I say it all the time in Montgomery, the churches have failed us, and middle class people are turning to the occult
Now-
and turning to it because
Let me get in here. Montgomery does not represent America, so I have a bit of a different kind of background than y'all. Like y'all were born and raised here,
You know?
and I come from Enterprise. I've lived in Atlanta. This is not like anywhere else in the world. Montgomery's evil, no doubt about it. My mom says it. And my mom's like, don't really fall into all that.
Yeah.
So you please don't take Montgomery as a sample of what's going on. Like, Montgomery's worse than Atlanta.
But that's
I'd go
fine,
sleep
Jay.
on a bench
That
in
is
College
fine
Park
about
and not
Montgomery,
here.
but across the board in the United States, the churches have failed Americans.
But you know what they have? But you know who hasn't failed the Americans?
Who?
The devil.
Yes.
I mean, everybody. So you know, you can't tell me that the 25% of the people, they'll go to these rituals for the sex magic to feed their perversions. They'll go get the drugs for the high that they need. They'll kill that animal in a private secret witness so they can end up becoming the city councilman, the police chief. Mm-hmm. The devil's winning out right now because the churches has taken the sword and shield out of the Christians' hands.
Very good point.
I support that.
You don't go to church to learn how to do spiritual warfare.
But you also shouldn't have to go to church to be a soldier of Christ.
It sure helps if you have a good church.
It helps, but here's the thing. It's gotten so political and so diluted down. Yeah. Every time you turn around, sexual abuse case of children in churches.
Well, but
come on.
Well, churches is an energy vortex. And we know from, you know what, I'm so proud we're at this stage of our life. And that's why I'm so telling Jake why it's so imperative for us to keep doing our shows.
It is.
To get our books out, because we can tell you now from our experience. I can personally tell you from my experience, and I'm sure I know y'all can too, how many people we have known and feel affiliated with churches that's heavily affiliated with the occult. Because churches is a great vortex of energy and a place to manipulate things.
And I'm going to go ahead and side with you here, Sean, and say that churches really are only a reflection of the people in them.
Yes.
So, I mean, you can point your finger at churches, but that finger still goes right at the American people.
Yes.
As far as our culture.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it boils down to a lot more than that. It boils down to our social media, our news,
it's
mental health,
true reflection.
Education, parenting. I mean,
we have forgotten that there is a spiritual warfare going on with a seen enemy and an unseen enemy, and we are continually, like you're saying, we're continually telling everybody that society's pushing you that these things don't exist, but they do. Just like our show that we did last week, we aren't telling you to believe us. We're just telling you to look for yourself.
Okay, you know what? This is a great way to segue into this. Have y'all been keeping up with the sex cult case with the actress Allison Mack?
No.
I remember
this
seeing that.
This is going on right now. This is going on right now, and I started researching it.
Yeah.
You know, what is the
Allison
NXIVM? Is it a cult? What do we know about it? We really don't know, but it's a secretive self-help group that's been accused of recruiting women and branding them. You remember the message I sent you with the little things?
Yeah.
How about that? Them, look, Sean, branding these women for sex cults.
Wow.
How about they arrested a guy in New York that's supposed to be the head of
Let me see that tattoo so I look at it.
And then, you know, they go by the secret name of DOS, which is dominant over submissive. This is a real American sex organization, and this David, the president of it, along with the Keith Ramirez of 57. He's one of the alleged co-leaders of this group. And what they do is they set up these self-help companies all throughout the United States.
Yeah.
It's been funded by the rich. I mean, they're well organized. And they recruit up to around 25, I guess, per business of secret sex slaves for secret sets. And it's named the DOS.
What
and this is a bizarre.
from?
The story's development and going on right now.
Where'd you pull the story from?
Yahoo, CNN, ABC. I mean, this is going on because the actress said that she's really not involved in it, but they know for facts and documents that her and that guy, have something going on.
All I can think about, this is probably way after y'all's time, but you remember is it Secret World or Secret Life of Allison Mack? Is it that Allison Mack?
From Smallville.
That might be that Allison Mack.
Yeah.
I have no idea about that.
Wow.
But
It's
yeah,
an old
this is
Nickelodeon
going on
show.
right now. And it's fixing to get bigger. There's a lot more players in this. But what's so funny, Sean?
Yeah.
This goes back to a show we did 10 years ago about the Hollywood and these stars and all these sex cults.
That stuff's coming out like crazy.
It is coming out like crazy all over the place.
That documentary, An Open Secret, that crap is haunting. Did you guys watch
I
it?
hadn't watched
No.
it. Now, what is it on?
Just YouTube.
Open Secret?
It's called An Open Secret.
But
Wow.
but you know what I was telling Jake earlier tonight, Sean?
Yeah.
Let's think about this. You talking about preying on the weak
Yeah.
and manipulating them, and when they're vulnerable and just attacking them. You take women who are beaten, battered, emotional distressed, and you put them in a nice group setting, right?
Yeah.
You can prey right onto them. You
Yeah.
can literally do whatever you want with them. And that's what's sick about it. And
Is
it's
it a
going
little
on
scary
all the
how,
time.
how he's talking about that from experience? Is it a little scary to you, Sean?
No, it's the truth.
I'm joking.
Hey man, no, I'm going.
I'm
Hey,
thinking
I know.
about it.
I know for a fact that that's true. I mean, it just is. It's human nature.
Mm-hmm.
If you have somebody that's an emotional distraught, and you show them attention, kindness, and act like you care, they'll do whatever you want to and won't even know they're doing it.
Yeah, there's definitely
And
a way to break down people.
That's why the Facebook's the devil. We talked about it tonight, and if you think about it, people are putting way too much personal business on their relationships,
True.
the way they live, their problems on Facebook, and predators are out there watching it.
I know way too much about most of y'all.
But the predators are almost are organized,
Yes.
and it comes back down to these cults.
Sean, you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
We've talked about this for years of these organizations and the biggest players in the game are in it. When you got actresses in Hollywood, and then you're going to have a lot of legal people come out. It's coming out.
You know,
it's going to take another month.
There's some super creepy private bulletin boards out there. You know how people talk about the dark web, all that.
Correct.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, all the dark web means is that you can't Google it. Basically, it's all the stuff like company intranets and all that stuff that doesn't show up on Google. There are, through various browsers in various ways, private bulletin boards that people set up. You know, like the old forums.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you have to know specifically how to reach it, and you have to have an approved username and password to access it. Some people, I don't know, it was on 4chan, so God knows if it's fake or not. But they've broken, real stuff before. But it's like stuff like, how do I turn my daughter and wife into sex slaves? That sort of thing.
Oh my God.
How do you break someone down?
This is happening. But Jay,
And then when you're saying like they're connected, that's a way that happens.
Yeah.
this is happening in real time on the good internet, as long as the dark web.
Yeah.
We're at a crazy ass society to where people actually think that this is okay to do. That they think that this is acceptable. This is acceptable behavior, and it's okay. And it's not okay. It started with the Catholic churches, the child sexual abuse cases, satanic ritual child abuse cases, mental health cases. Then you got on top of having possessions.
Like what really interests me in all this, with the birth of the internet age, the way people communicate now and the way information is shared, we're in our adolescence. So we're in our 13, 14-year-old mindset as a race almost.
Yeah.
I want to see what happens when that kid grows up. The kid could still grow up good. There's a chance. It's not very likely, but I want to see how that kid grows up.
But you know what? I want to go back to this, Sean.
All right.
The show you did about exorcisms. When did we do that show?
It's like we've done a ton.
I'm talking about with the Catholic Church, when we talked about that in depth.
It was
And we
a while
talked
ago, I
about
believe.
the priests, all the exorcisms, and them getting new priests.
Yeah.
Do you know right now,
Oh, yeah.
those numbers have tripled? The
Yeah.
Catholic faith in the world has tripled the number of priests for exorcisms all over the world. And it's an ongoing thing, and they want to keep it in the closet. But now with everything else, nothing's in the closet no more.
Isn't the cardinal that runs, I think the American parish or whatever you want? I'm not Catholic, Doesn't he not really allow that here in America? Like, it's more like in third world countries, like a lot of South America, a lot of Africa.
South America,
China.
Africa.
I want to say China too, right?
No, hold on. I was just fixing to say Asia.
Yeah.
Didn't I send you a message
You did.
about the Asian and how weird? There's a lot of Asian paranormal stuff getting in the news now, Sean.
Yeah.
To me, that's very weird. It's kind of tabooish. Like, you never think paranormal exorcisms, China.
No.
Well, if you really look at their culture, they embrace that side of things much more than we do. They don't poo-poo it. It's part of their culture. You know what I mean? Like at a Chinese funeral, they make up these paper effigies and burn them
Yeah.
to help them in the next life. Like they'll make up like a house and burn the house, and that's supposed to give them a house and then you know what I mean. It goes toward their luck and all that. Pray for them. You know, you go into Taoism, especially in Japan, which fortunately kind of show my power level here.
Go ahead.
You get into Shintoism, those beliefs, the animism they have there, which when they do exorcisms, it's weird how similar it is to what we do actually.
Yeah.
Like they do the bell, they do all that stuff, man. And it's kind of funny how similar things are in every part of the world. China gets pretty weird, to be honest. Like, you know, they have the Jiangshi, which is their vampire, which is more like a zombie.
Yeah.
And most vampires throughout the world, the thing that ties them together is it's always usually rooted in the belief of a malevolent spirit.
Well, you know, vampire goes back as long as there's, what is it, Abrahamic religion.
Yeah.
There's been vampires. You know, it goes all the
Yeah.
way back. You know, so there's always a form of vampire in every way, in every Abrahamic religion. Is
If
that
you
right?
really look at a Dybbuk, that's pretty close
Exactly.
to what a
It is.
vampire, you'd think a vampire would be. It's always a malevolent spirit at the root of thing.
Then it comes back to having that host and so on.
Yeah,
That
and
we
then
need.
if you really kind of boil things down to their essence, what's the difference between a vampire, a fairy, a Bigfoot, a UFO?
There's not.
There's not that much,
No.
other than just that coat of paint that's on it.
That's
true. All right. Sean, you had a question sent to you this week.
Okay.
The question from our viewers, our listeners, and plus you can check us out on YouTube and Facebook. You can send us questions via YouTube and Facebook whenever you want to, and we try to get to all of them.
Okay.
The question for you, Sean, this week was, where do you really see this field in the next 5 years? With everything going on, where do you see it?
Oh my God! You know, the field right now is where it's at. It's in a good place. Actually.
Do you really see?
Because
do you really think it is?
I'm looking at it from my point of view. I think everybody out there has really needs to sit back and really look at that, because anybody that wanted to do it to be a TV star, they know that time's over with.
Yeah.
Now you're starting to weed out those people, and you're starting to have the ones that still interested in it, the ones that still get excited to hear the old Southern ghost stories, the ones that really want to see why is this happening, what's causing this, the ones that would actually come and sit down and share with you, well, you know, this happened to me, and this is what I did to investigate it, and this is my theory, and you can talk about it again. I see us in the next 5 years in a better place than we've ever had been in the past 10 years since before Ghost Hunters, because the people that's going to be in it are going to be the people who sincerely care about the field and want to explore the unknown. And I think it's important to accept all these different point of views, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge the ones that's probably walking on the darker side than the lighter side, because they are influenced by the host.
Okay, let me ask you something. This is
I'll
me
say-
asking you.
Okay, shut up.
With the opiate epidemic in America,
Yeah.
could you see more hosts of possessions than ever in the past 2 years? And if so, wouldn't you see more exorcisms in America?
Well, I mean, how can you exercise? I mean, a lot of the opioids epidemics and everything else, you're dealing with addiction. You're dealing with, anytime you have a host of stuff like that, you have to have a hold to attack you and to attach to you. And the people that's battle the addictions are open for anything. And before you can treat attack the spiritual stuff, you got to work on the maintenance side and actually fight the addiction and conquer that as well. And that starts getting over that free will. I mean, that's a tough one. What were you saying, Jack?
I don't remember now.
Really? You just moved
Really?
on.
I moved on.
I think the whole opioid, it comes back down to when you start looking at this, the levels that we are now and where we're going in the next 5 years. You have the people that you want to call the Illuminati, the people that's controlling a lot of society and directing us. And they're the ones that's directing us with the opioids things. You know, since we've been in Afghanistan, our opium crops has been flourishing. I think now you have the addictions going on there. I think they're leading this charge and causing people to causing a lot of these problems. These medical pharmaceutical companies are doing that and leading you down the wrong road. So you have the big brother who's basically that. Then you have the people that's practicing the occult, the satanic ritual abuse, the sex trade, everyone's just practicing these dark rituals. And then you have basically the zombies. And then you have the few people of us that say, oh, we woke. Yeah, we woke. We know it, but we broke too. I mean, we're spiritually broke.
Hashtag woke.
Hey,
Yeah, hashtag woke.
how about this? Let's talk about the Illuminati, Big Brother, and finances and the retailers of the United States. You talk about predictions coming up? Here's something we're going to do tonight. How about by the end of this year, these retailers are probably going to be bankrupt or close to bankruptcy going into the first quarter of 2019. You ready?
Yeah.
Because these are mind-blowing.
Okay.
Steinmark, Office Depot, the Vitamin Shop, Penny's. J.C. Penney's is hanging on with a thread.
Yeah.
Fred's Pharmacy and Fred's and GNC will be bankrupt in America at the end of the year or the first quarter of 2019.
Amazon.
And you
Yeah.
talk about Illuminati and Big Brother of what they're doing.
Bezos.
Man, it's set up. You are set up for failure in business right now,
Yeah.
especially corporate America business.
You basically have to have a shop on Amazon or no one's going to buy nothing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that from experience.
Oh, I bought stuff on Amazon today.
But speaking of some of the things, I'm not going to be on the show next week, but we are going to have a special guest.
Yeah.
Special guest.
O.P. Robertson is actually going to be here, and he's going to give predictions. And if you have any questions you want to ask him, send it to Hump, and he'll definitely be
Yes.
able to ask those.
Slide
And he's going to do readings, give you some predictions, and all that next week. So it's a definitely kind of different vibe to the show. So we're going to work on that as well next week. And also, Jake, you've been working on the book. What's the status on that? We're actually going to have our book redone and put back out, and that's our last time. So we start moving forward with some new projects.
Got several things in the pot. Several.
Yeah. So we're back. So get ready.
And we want to push the envelope.
Yeah.
I definitely want to push the envelope with our show. But yeah, we'll have a special guest next week. If you have a question for next week on predictions or readings and stuff, get with me on my social media, Facebook, or get with us down at the Crossroads Radio YouTube. Please add our YouTube. We need subscribers, and it's always a pleasure, guys.
I hope you enjoyed the show tonight. If you like us, let us know. If you don't like us, please don't tell us. We'll appreciate it.
Vagilegos.